peace and security expert. On my far end, I have Michael Agwanda, governance expert. Gentlemen, it's so good to have you with us this Monday morning.
Thank you.
Now, both the Daily Nation as well as the Sun newspaper have gone big on the Dusit D2 attack, and they have even gone further to put in the names as well as the images of the people that are suspected to be part of that network that caused the incident. But let's begin with the Sun newspaper, the call that helped crack the network. We've even gone further to give you numbers. 5, the number of terrorists who were killed in that attack. 700 are the number of Kenyans and non-Kenyans who survived that attack. 6, the number of suspects, collaborators who have been presented in court. So allow me to start with that page 4 and page 5. And Michael, I will begin with you. You look at the names of some of these people, Ali Salim Gishuge and Farouk, his companion rather, Violet Kemunto. The face of terrorism is changing. What your typical terrorist looked like 5 years ago is not what we are seeing now. Sadly enough, it's our own sons and daughters who have now become the face of our own homegrown terrorism.
Good morning, our viewers. Again, I want to start by condoning with the people who lost their loved one, the Dusit, terror attack. That was a cowardly act, and it should be condemned. Previously, we thought that the terrorist was a man who was dressed in a white, probably not hijab, but a white kanzu and with a band on top. We thought that mostly will be a grown-up Muslim, perhaps, who went through the process and was indoctrinated into the idea of killing to get justification in heaven. Some people purport that's perhaps what they've been taught in their madras and stuff like that. And again, it reminds me of this stuff that I see a lot on YouTube, where a gentleman is dressed with a hairband and is in a white kanzu.
The Jalas brothers.
Yes. And it drops a bag with something, a content that is not known, and how people have literally jumped sometimes over the bridge into the water, out of their cars, and some people have literally hurt themselves so badly that that's the image that has been portrayed out there. I mean, it may look like a gag, it may look like something that you just want to make people laugh about, but that is also sending an image that, the Al-Shabaab kind of a guy or a terrorist is a guy who's dressed like this.
Right.
Now, when you come back to our own home, we know that a lot has happened in Mombasa. We know that also many people have also fallen in the line, the likes of Abu Rogo and all that literally were out there to indoctrinate people with ideologies that per se are not even found, it's not in the Muslim, teachings.
Right.
But because what we're seeing today, the deaths that are taking place are not only targeting other religions, they're not only targeting Christians, they're targeting each and every person that finds himself in those very premises. And so it could be your brother, it could be your sister, it could be your uncle living in and working in that building. And I mean, they will not care whether it's from a religion or not, it's a Muslim or not. But what we need to know is a time has come when Kenya has to look from within, because the agencies, the security agencies in this country must be commended for a good work done, whether it's through roadblock and inspection, whether it's through intelligence. I know that NIS has done a lot of work and has actually averted so many terror attacks in this country. And we know that the police have also done a very good job. The CID, DCI has also done a very good job ensuring that when they get the information, it is followed within the time frame that it's required. But again, the problem now we are facing is this thing is attacking our own brothers. One of the terrorists that was killed over there is purported to be a son of a military man. How in the world could you have ever imagined a man being a terrorist coming from, a son of a man that is defending this country? It is practically impossible to imagine. And therefore, I really think as much as we're concentrating on our borders, as much as we're concentrating in Isili and many other places where when you look at statistics, we've found more people that have actually been supporting Al-Shabaab to be Muslims, a lot of them, and that's a reality. And a lot of them that have been killing perhaps because of either our interest in Somali or our relationship with the United States of America, not necessarily as Kenyans that we are being attacked for anything we've done wrong, but it's either our association with America or it's either our association with Somali and our AMISOM being in Somalia. Right. And so I really think a time has changed that now the security department or the security in this country need not to look so much outside, but within, so that they must now start talking about the most, and I'll say this as I finish this, the person who knows who is bad in this country is not necessarily the police or the DCI. It's not necessarily the NIS. They have to go an extent. The security agency have to go to a different level for them to know who is bad in this country. The person who knows who is bad in this country is our neighbors.
Right. And gentlemen, yesterday I had the privilege of talking to Sheikh Abdi Yasmat, and we had this conversation on whether it's time to pull back our troops and for them to come back home. And one of the things that he said within that conversation is that a lot of the reason why it's young faces that you're seeing that have become the face of terrorism, and not, as you said, your typical old man or woman within a specific community. He said it's because of two things. One, ideology, and the issue of radicalization, and the fact that the Kenyan government needs to start including the Somali community within things that matter, such as employment, such as these other things, so they do not feel as if they are left out. At the end of the day, they've become part of our community. Mutie, is this new? Is this tactic new, this tactic of having to get an Omondi, a Wanjiru, a Kiprutich? Is this tactic new?
It is quite a new tactic by Madam Zinzi, and I want to say that there has some changes in terms of the faces that terrorism has taken of late. Mm-hmm. When you heard about the first cases of terrorism in this country, the issues of Kikambala bombing, the 1998, the ideas behind the bombing by that time are not the same as today. And I want to say, for example, for the Kikambala case, you could remember that they targeted the whites. Again, it came to a point that they were targeting non-Muslims. For example, the Westgate, where they could tell you to recite something, you know, so that they can gauge whether you are Muslim or you are not. And if you don't pass the test, they shoot you. So now it has come to a time when they are not discriminating whether you are Muslim or Christian. Right. So it is now taking a different twist. But the most important thing, as you have said, that our presence in Somalia is the starting point for us. I think we broke the first principle, and I'm talking as a governance expert on matters of security issues. We broke the first principle of our presence in Somalia. And why do I say this? You don't throw stones when you are living in a house of glass. You know, that decision of taking our soldiers there was first a mistake. And I want to say this because Kenyans, as members of AMISOM, they ought to have understood that when you are fighting a neighboring country that has problems such as Somalia, you are going to be the first casualty, or you are going to have the first effects of the spillover once the problems escalates to another level. And that's why if Kenyan troops were to fight, I think they ought not to have been in the fore, or they ought not to have been known that they are having their presence in Somalia, because that has a direct link with the spillover effects that we are facing today. And I want to give you statistics. Ethiopia itself is not hardly hit as we hear. Mm-hmm. As much as it has its own staff, troops in Somalia, mm-hmm. You ask yourself, why is it that we are being hit more harder than Ethiopia? Yet Ethiopia has the longest border line compared to Kenya.
Uganda, who lead the AMISOM
Yeah,
troops.
Exactly. But you see, they are a bit distant. You hardly hear about cases of terrorism in Uganda, other than the case of football, when there was a football match in Uganda the other day. But you hardly hear about these cases. You also hardly hear about these cases in Burundi, who have also members in AMISOM. So, because we are the immediate neighbors to Somalia, we ought not to have taken our troops there, or rather we ought not to have played a very key role in our presence as far as Somalia is concerned. Tactically, we would have played a role just the way Americans are doing intelligence gatherings and software sort of support, but the physical presence of our troops in Somalia, first of all, is a problem. But because it's a problem that we have to live with it, then we have to find homegrown solutions to the problem at hand.
And
now that we are there.
And therein lies my next question, whether intelligence sharing. There was allegedly, there was an alert sent out of this D2 attack and of the Westgate attack and all these other attacks that we've seen. There's been intelligence sharing that this specific government, the US government or the Israeli government, warned the Kenyan government. And not just alone with the attack that we saw last week Tuesday, with all the attacks that we've seen as a nation. But the question is, what happens? What does our government do with this intelligence that they get? Who is sleeping on their job? Do they act on this intelligence?
I don't think anybody is sleeping on anything. If you look at it, the terrorists attack everybody. They attack Americans, they attack Britons, they attack. So you can't say that they have given you accurate information that you'd be able to work on, because they are also vulnerable. The heart of man is inclined to evil. And when man plans real evil, you may have a clue. You can see the countenance of somebody and you say, so-and-so is up to something funny, but you can't tell exactly until it is done. So saying that somebody is sleeping on the job or doing all these things is a bit going on the extreme. Allow me just to comment on this red herring being thrown around that our troops are in Somalia and therefore we should not have done it. And what, when Osama bin Laden hit us here, it was world shaking. We were not in Somalia. What led us to go to Somalia? They were hitting us right here before we went to Somalia. If you saw the attack at the Dusit, or whichever tail we call it, we can clearly say that they are being scattered. The terrorists have been scattered. They try very hard, but if you look at the magnitude, it is reducing. There was a time in this country that almost every month there would be some terrorist attack in Isili, another attempt, where now it is under serious control. Why? Because they have nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. They have no training ground. Where was their training ground? In Somalia. So the decision to take the troops to Somalia was one of the best. Kenyans took it. It is heavy, it is expensive, and the terrorists themselves know that had we left them to continue to expand, they would have driven us out of this country. They would have bombed everywhere. The tactic that is well known is that you take the battle to their doorstep. That's what our sons and daughters have done, and we should always be grateful, thankful. And if they continue, we need to increase them.
Right.
If it is necessary, we wipe everybody who is associated to them. But running away, they give us a red herring to follow. Oh, if you remove your troops from here, then you know we will stop killing you, we will stop doing. Then you say, why are you doing it in Paris? Why are you doing it in China? No, not China, in England. Why then, if they are not in Somalia? So the terrorists would know that as long as they attack us here, if we know they are in Somalia, we will go there and mutilate even their children. We are also feeling the pain, and we will not be misled.
Of course, as I said, Michael Gitonga will be taking this conversation a bit deeper from 7 a.m. Combating terrorism is what we will he'll be taking a look at. For example, arming private guards, as well as radicalization and recruitment, and as we've already touched, our troops in Somalia. But on page 6, allow me to bring your attention to that. They've showed the faces as well as the names of the people, the men believed to be a part of that network. So make sure you grab a copy of the Daily Nation or the Standard and familiarize yourself with the names and the faces. But let me also take you to page 8. We're seeing this new bromance between Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta continuing. President breaks protocol to make surprise Kisumu tour. I'll just read for you a snippet so you can understand what's happening here. So President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga breached protocol and delayed the formal flights by more than 4 hours as they toured Kisumu together. Apparently, they went to the yacht club to eat fish and ugali. Agwanda, this relationship, this bromance between Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta seems quite genuine. For Uhuru Kenyatta and to say, let me break protocol. This Sunday, instead of going back to Nairobi, let me have lunch with Raila Odinga at yacht club.
You know, people are probably reading more than they're supposed to in this case. I mean, first of all, we have to know that these families have been friends since independence.
Right.
And I think Uhuru was born in State House, and when he was born, I believe, you know, Raila was already born, and it was a celebration. You know, that time they were still very close. Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, I mean, Jaramogi Odinga was still very close and working in government. I strongly believe that sometimes we say you're not friends until you eat together, and that might not be necessarily that one where you have an appointment. You know how you break protocol and go to Weda's house and say, hey, Weda, what are you having? And he says, no, man, I wish I knew you were coming. I would have prepared a real feast for you. I know Weda wouldn't do that for me, but today I'm only having a pot for that reason. You know, a pot is that little Miranda thing. You know, this is all we'll have today, and I think that's probably the best way to describe a true relationship. Where we are as a country, you know, there are only few people that really think that the relationship and the working relationship between the opposition leader Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta is not good for this country. But majority, and I can tell you for free, it's only some few clique of politicians that are so ambitious and so selfish and so self-centered that they think that relationship will deny them an opportunity to ascend to a position of authority. You see, what God has for us, no one knows tomorrow. I mean, what God has for us tomorrow, no one knows. I mean, we may want to go to Nairobi or to Mombasa tomorrow, but then tomorrow we'll never reach. I pray that we, as a country, we take, you know, this relationship with great honor and with great respect, and I only hope that it will serve the interests of this country. Right. People will not be sitting on the street again. People will not be killing one another on another election. That people will not be looking at one another and wondering, where are you from? Oh, you look so brown, you must be coming from Central. Oh, you look so dark, you could be coming from Rift Valley or something like that. That we will look at a genuine relationship that can build this country, not only at a personal level. Let me tell you, what the two does when they eat together. You know, today I was walking in here and Mr. Weda was saying, look, a handshake, you know, and maybe probably make sure that he gives me, fish for that reason. But you see, that relationship is not just being done at the top, but it's also permeated into the entire country.
Right.
And what a better way to live. And I don't care about a president breaching protocol. I don't think this country is so insecure that a president cannot drive alone and go to a certain place.
Right.
That everybody is looking for this president to kill him or for deputy president to kill him. I think it is high time. We've seen President Kibaki is now driving alone. Nobody cares about him. I mean, that to me is how we need to look at it. Why do we spend so much money on protocol and even presidential escort?
Right.
A lot of money. This must be, you know, what is the danger? No danger.
Gentlemen, we have to talk about what's happening on the African continent. A bit of international news, of course, which we have highlighted on the newspaper. It's been quite a busy month as we began this year for the African continent. The coup d'etat attempt in Gabon, of course, the DRC elections, which is we've highlighted on page 33, and Sudan and what's currently happening there with the protests, Zimbabwe, and even with that shutdown that we're seeing. And whether I'll perhaps begin with you with this one. And just to give even context for our viewers, with DRC, President Laurent Kabila was assassinated back in 2001. His son took over power until recently when the country had elections. But it's taken almost a month for the electoral body to come out and say that this is the candidate that has won. Then that was taken to their own Supreme Court. It's been a bit of back and forth. Until now, this reads that DR Congo opposition calls for demonstrations, and Felix Tshisekedi will win, or rather wins the upheld. Here's the thing, whether Gabon had an attempted coup. The same case with there, you had a father and son relation in terms of presidency. Al-Bashir, his own citizens are trying to remove him out of power because of the living conditions, bread, which is about 5 times more than the usual price. Then you have, of course, DRC with the elections that have happened. Why is it that within our not Kenyan, but our African leaders, and not all, but just some, why are they so obsessed? Why are they personalized presidency? If you finish your election, your son takes over. Why is that? Why we personalize presidency on the continent?
I think if you look at the human being. The biggest quest is to be in church. The desire to dominate was given to us by our Maker. You understand? Each one of us would like to dominate. But the assignment was to dominate things, not people. But once we lost it, now we've gone to dominate people. You'll find everybody tries to dominate. Even the house girl wants to dominate, even the plates. Every corner, Guango wants to dominate, Weda wants to dominate. So that dominance, once you become president, you want to retain it. In fact, we thank God that he also allowed death to be taking place. Otherwise, some people would buy new hearts and new kidneys and new lungs, and they would be here for 300 years just to dominate others. So these leaders, when now it has become difficult for them to continue in power, they want people very close to them. That is inherent. Now, when it comes to Africa, because we didn't have structures, therefore, whoever lays his hand on the instruments of violence, the one who controls violence, the army, the police, the one who can tell everybody to keep quiet or you are dead, continues to lead. That is how men led. That is how those guys like Gabon and all these rogues. And you do that while people are boiling. And they will boil to a point where now death means nothing to them. That is now when they come out and say, since both sides are death to us, we remain quiet, we are dying. We face you, we are dying. Now let's die. That's what Bashir